Hey guys, how's it going? Kriparian here. So lately in the Diablo scene, Blizzard has announced that they've recognized that certain stats like thorns and life on kill are terrible. Wow, who knew? Now, obviously it doesn't come as a surprise to anyone that's ever played Diablo 3 that there's a lot of really crap design in certain stats. Um, but that's just kind of how it's working. It doesn't affect the game that much. It just changes the dynamic to where if you get unlucky, certain items are completely worthless rather than just worth a lot less. And it kind of works, but from a design point of view, there's so much potential that is wasted completely by just having them sit there and do nothing. Now, if you've played the earlier iterations of Diablo, Diablo 2, and even 1 in some cases, you've seen that some of these stats are actually really cool. Now, in Diablo 2, there were stats like light radius, and they also had thorns. And these stats, if you played Diablo 2 Classic, were really cool. And why were they really cool? Because on occasion, they changed the color of the item, and you could have a really unique looking character. It'd be like an exotic character. So for instance, if you had light radius, which is like completely crap in Diablo 2, it'd just like increase the viewing distance, but it wouldn't matter because you could still see like anything anyway. If you use those items, you can make those items that have that stat at a certain quantity level, like banana yellow, and they would be like so cool. Same with thorns, you'd have like orange items and certain other things like mana showed up on armor and stuff like that. And because mana was so useless for certain classes, like a whirlwind barbarian, certain barbarians would deliberately get mana items so they would look blue. And I just thought that was amazing. Just making creative use out of really shitty stats. I don't know if it was by design, but it was definitely awesome. Certain other games like Path of Exile, they have used much less desirable stats, and they've adapted them to a niche market. So certain stats would just be like really crappy, but with certain unique builds, you could really make use out of those stats. And because of that, it would work. Because of the trade system, the items that would have those stats in large quantities would not be worth very much because most people wouldn't know what to do with them. But to the right person, they could get a really decked out character, a really unique character, and make use out of very low cost items. All this shit is pretty much taken out of Diablo 3. At certain times, certain stats were useful, but some others were just never useful at all, ever. And what I want to do is I want to go through some of the items in Diablo 3 here, just to review some of the stats, and maybe I'll shed some ideas with the YouTubes, and maybe Blizzard will do one of those things where they take some advice from the fans and maybe go with it. All right, so we'll do weapons here first. We got all the little stats here, just going by the auction house because I don't keep crappy items, and it'll just take me forever to build up something like this. So we're just gonna look up items in the auction house. Now there's stuff like arcane power on crit. Generally, if you find the stat on like a wand that doesn't really work for you, it's kind of an okay stat. But certain builds, as you know, are really powerful with stats like these. So this is like a really effective stat. You have the damage stats, no big deal. You have the bleed chance. This is like a really crap stat because it doesn't scale at all. Having like a set damage on a percentage is completely useless. And one of the best weapons I've ever found on hardcore had like 20% chance to bleed for 100 damage over 5 seconds. So I'm like, oh. Yeah, I guess I'd rather have that than like 900 life on hit, right? No. It's fucking terrible. Basically, the main issue is that Diablo 3 is a game that everything stacks as a percentage except certain stats. And one of those stats is bleed chance. What they have to do is they have to make bleed chance scale as a percentage of your weapon swing damage. So it would be bleed for 20% damage over like 2 seconds or something like that. So it'd actually be useful. Oh my god. Okay. And there's these like chance to whatever on hit. A lot of them are pretty useless, but if you stack enough of them, especially with like stun, it can be really cool. But there are others which are not, like slow on hit. This is like the dumbest stat ever. If I wanted to slow a target on hit, I'd just get some cold damage, right? Chill on hit. Yeah, it makes no sense. Like, you just cannot make use out of these stats. They're absolutely useless. Of course, you have experience, which is largely useless nowadays. Experience should all be percentage based, as far as I'm concerned, to make it scale better. There's going to be a lot more item utilization by making that work that way. You have Gold Find. Gold Find was once, and perhaps still currently is, a very useful stat in determining and identifying bots. But nowadays, for the average player, Gold Find is really bad. Not only because finding gold doesn't really scale very well to the inflation up to the point where we're at in Diablo 3, but also because if you're a decent Paragon level, if you got into Foul and Valor stacks, you already have a large amount of gold find, and adding on top of that as a percentage of the base is much smaller than just getting it when the game came out. Because when the game came out, you got like 100 gold. If you had like 20 gold find in your gear, you'd find 20% more gold. But now, if you're Paragon level 50, you got 150, you got the Valor stacks, you got another 75, adding another 20, it's like less than 10%. So the marginal gain is very crap, to be honest. Alright, so there's other stats like Indestructible. I kind of like Indestructible, but it pains me when I see this crap on items, man. It's just like, I like, man, what could have been, I don't think Indestructible should be counted as a stat. I think maybe there'll be some use in PvP if there's like really drawn out situations, but really, man, I don't know. I think items in general should have like a 1 in 20 or maybe more than that chance to just be indestructible, and they would have maybe some kind of glow. But this shouldn't count towards stats, because this is completely wasted for what people do nowadays. Alright, and what else do we have? Life on kill. Oh my god. How is the stat still in the game, man? This is terrible. The thing with life on kill is, when you kill the target, you get life anyway with a health globe. Why would you want a static amount of life when you kill something? I guess it could be okay if you're just mowing down hordes of mobs, but if you're doing that, you don't really need the life anyway. So life on kill, because of the health globe mechanic, I feel is extremely useless. The way I would make a life benefit per kill idea work in terms of items is you can have a stat that increases the rate at which you get health globes, because more health globes also gives you more life on kill, but it also stacks with certain abilities such as witch doctors getting the spell power, demon hunters, and certain other things. You could actually really make that a really nice niche stat, but it's completely wasted in its current form. And when this shit shows up on gear, oh my god, I lose it sometimes. I lose it. All right. Going through the rest of the stats, I don't think there's any more too bad stats. Of course, min bleed damage. There are these like weapon skill bonuses, and sometimes I find these on the wrong items, man. A friend of mine, he found a storm shield, and it rolled spectral blade damage. So I don't know. I guess that's okay, because it will eventually show up on the correct item, maybe, but damn. In my opinion, these stats are so niche that it's really frustrating when you get them, because maybe one time out of 10 it'll actually do something towards that particular piece. But more or less, I just wish they maybe join them up with certain other stats. So for instance, Spectral Blade could only spawn an item that has intelligence on it rolled or something like that. Some kind of inclusive stat roll, something like that. I don't know, but those need some work definitely. Now, when it comes to armor, there's some good stuff here, but there's some crap stuff. Let's talk about the resist. So all resist, that's kind of good. Obviously, it's one of the most powerful stats in the game. But then you have the singular resist. The singular resists, in theory, are pretty good. They work really well in Diablo 2. But in Diablo 2, generally, you'd have singular resists to kind of narrow the gap, balance out the items, and especially in Classic, I felt that it worked excellent. Problem in Diablo 3 is there's no cap. Getting singular resist doesn't really help you in any way. All it does is you just take less damage from that particular source. And certain sources, like lightning, is like garbage. Like poison? Who cares? You know? Arcane's pretty good. Arcane beams do hurt. Fire's alright. I like fire. But certain others are just really useless. I understand monks make use out of them, but I don't know. If I find like barb shoulders and then it has like fucking lightning resist, man, I don't feel so good about that. And the other design flaw is that you have the all resist potential is higher than the singular resist roll potential. So on like a max level armor piece, you can get 80 all resists, but the most you can get out of a singular resist is 60. How does that make any sense? I mean, you have the worst stat and it rolls less than the better alternative. That makes no sense to me at all. I think they should rework the monk passive just so it doesn't become overpowered when you like quadruple the amount of resistances the singular ones give. So you'd want to have like a singular resist roll, maybe cap out at like 200, maybe even more than that, just to actually make it work the way I feel it's supposed to. Now there's a lot of crap stuff like skills like these. You can kind of make them work, just a little bit disappointing that it shows up as often as it does. You have the chill and the oh my god, even looking at those makes me hate some of the items, makes me remember some terrible experiences. So you have the crowd control reduction. This is actually a very underused stat in my opinion. Crowd control reduction is very powerful, and you have to watch out for that come PvP. Extra health from health globes. Yeah. This stat can be okay. If you get an item that rolls like plus 12k health from health globes, you can kind of maybe see the difference, but it's so small, and the fact that this shit rolls like plus 200 health from health globes in certain cases is abysmal. I don't know what they should do with this stat, but it's definitely underperforming like crazy. Extra health from health globes is one of the worst stats that you ever see on gear because it effectively does nothing for your character. When you hit a health globe, you're getting a huge heal anyway, and it just doesn't scale well. It used to maybe work okay at like the lower levels when the game first came out, but past that, it's so bad. I don't even know what to do with this, to be honest. You can kind of have maybe a stat that instead of extra health from health globes would give you a resource-based benefit when hitting a health globe. So it's like, you know, replenish 1% of your resource pool per health globe or something like that, just to add a real dynamic, because this is just a flat, like, garbage stat in my opinion. You got the gold find, the indestructible, very, very disappointing stuff. There's really not much else here aside from the one that was already mentioned by Blizzard. I can't even find it here. It's the thorns. I don't fucking know what thorns is. Anyway, the way they gotta make thorns is obvious. I don't even know why they're putting it off. You know, when they made their statements, they're like, yeah, we'll look at thorns. We'll kind of make changes in the long term, not in the short term, blah, 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 by our expansion, you know? But it's very obvious. Thorns worked, like Crippy made a barb when barbs did 10k damage and Inferno was harder than MP10 in the amount of damage that you took on your character. And he made thorns kind of work. He had like 20k thorns, and because bards only did like 10k damage if they were able to survive Inferno in Act 3 or 4 at all. So having thorns at that level was kind of beneficial, but it was still kind of a joke then, let alone now when people do 1,000,000 damage, It's totally worthless stat now. So what they need to do, very simple, take that thorns damage, that static, and roll it like the rest of the game into a percentage-based system. Make thorns roll like, let's say, 5% of your weapon damage when you're hit, or something like that. If you want to make it even cooler, make it like 5% chance when you're hit to counter attack with a regular attack. Just like really cool stuff. The potential is out there, but it's really wasted where it could shine and be a real feature, a really exciting part of the game. I hope Blizzard takes some notes, maybe from me, maybe from other games, like Path of Exile next month should be some serious competition, and I hope for the best. I hope they improve. I have to play Diablo 3 for some time to come. See you guys tomorrow.